So let's talk about the Portland Trailblazers, who are currently 10-3. And as a bunch of NBA stories are coming out all the time, we've got Draymond and KD hating each other. We got me talking about the Karis LeVert injury. We got the Bucks and the Raptors taking over the East. The Celtics are a mess. Quietly, the Blazers are one of the best teams in the league. And I think one thing that I definitely overlooked with them was the potential for internal improvement. Because one thing I said all this offseason was, a bunch of teams in the West got better, right? Like, Jokic is going to be the number one dude for the Nuggets day one. The Jazz are going to have Gobert, hopefully for an entire season. Also, it's Mitchell's second year. The Pelicans are now all in on this super fast defense-first style, Anthony Davis going to center. The Grizzlies are going to have a healthy Conley and Gasol, on and on. I mean, the Lakers got LeBron, all that stuff. There's a couple in there that I probably forgot. And I ignored the fact that the Blazers, while sure, they didn't have a lot of additions this offseason, they had a couple. Seth Curry, quietly a pretty efficient, just backup point guard / backup two guard who can be a decent shooter for you. Currently shooting 50% from three. Nick Stauskas, who has climbed his way to being a decent NBA role player. But really, it's the fact that this team is familiar with each other. Because all these other teams, they made additions or players are back or whatever, but they also have to figure all that stuff out, right? Whereas with Portland, it's like everybody knows the deal here. CJ and Dame are going to lead the team in shots. There isn't any complications of like who's going to dribble X amount of times a game, who's going to get their post touches or whatever. The flow of this team is already in place, and I think that on top of using Evan Turner, Dame, and CJ in a little different ways, and we'll talk about that in a second, has allowed these guys to be so good out of the jump. So, actually, before I get to that, I want to talk about the defense. I think it's established at this point, this team's just really good on defense. I mean, this year they are, according to Basketball Reference, 6th in the league in defensive rating. Last year they were 8th, and they've been a lot better ever since they got Nurkic. And I don't think all of that is because of Nurkic. Part of it is. The other part is that it's just a big team. Like, Evan Turner's a big guy. Aminu, still one of the best role players in the league. Nurkic is really just big around the rim. Zach Collins can move effectively enough. Dame and CJ have gotten better. Also, some credit to Jake Layman, who's just stepped in and started for about a solid 15 minutes a game. Doesn't do too much on either side of the floor, but doesn't really mess anything up either. And it's all just kind of working. Now if we can get to the offense. So I think the biggest thing they're doing is they're making Evan Turner look like Boston Celtics Evan Turner again, which is just giving him the ball a little more often. Now, I don't think the stats totally reflect this. I mean, his usage rate is a little higher this year than it was last year, but when you actually watch the games, it's like maybe Turner will get an extra pick and roll play, or he'll get an extra handoff play, or he'll just simply hold the ball longer at the top of the key, whatever it may be, right? And what happens is the Blazers are using Dame and CJ to just play off the ball and move across screens and get handoff plays and that sort of thing, and it's opening up their offense a lot more. I mean, you look at it right now, Evan Turner with the starters, so him replacing Jake Layman, on Basketball Reference, that lineup is a plus 43 right now per 100 possessions. That is massive. But Turner's also been like kind of successful when he's not playing with Dame or CJ. Some of the lineups have been a little rough, mainly when Harkless is in there, because I think at that point there's just not enough shooting. But when he plays with like Curry and Stauskas, there are times when it's going pretty all right. So Evan Turner with shooters seems to be working, which is huge. I mean, turning Evan Turner into an actual productive player for you and not just a guy who brings the ball up floor, passes it off, and then gets ignored by the defense is huge, because he's the kind of guy that they really need, because if we remember that Pelicans series, the reason they lost is because they just kept on trying to run pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll with Dame, and what happened was Drew either fought over every single screen or they just swarmed the ball handler. The Blazers would pass it off to whoever, and then they wouldn't have enough time to actually make a play happen. And the direct counters to that are, number one, having CJ screen for Dame, which I don't know if they've really done that. I don't even know how to track that, really. But the other thing is just to move those two off the ball a little bit more, which they are doing now. They're running a lot more handoff plays, and even when Evan Turner's not in the game, I mean, a couple of the games I've seen, it seems like there's a real emphasis on doing that. Like, they'll start the game, and Dame will just pass the ball off. He'll go baseline. He'll come back around. He'll get the handoff play. The big will immediately screen for him. Just way more creativity, way more dynamic stuff. And it's good to watch. It's good to see that this team is just getting better. They didn't have to make any crazy moves. And it was good that they didn't fire Terry Stotts. Now, they had reason to fire Stotts because his performance in that round one series was not good. But it seems that he's realizing why it didn't go well, and that's a pretty good thing. Now, do I think that they are going to maintain this 10-3 pace for the entire season? I mean, no. Because that would lead to like 60 wins if I'm doing my math correctly off the top of my head. Regardless, it would lead to a lot of victories. And I don't know if the talent on this team really reflects that. I mean, if they were to do that, that would be like the one year the Hawks did that, right? But even so, this team could be looking at a 50 to maybe perhaps even a mid-50s win season if they can keep this up. I would also love to see them make just one more kind of move. Like, you know, Jake Layman's done a good job just spot starting, basically, and Mo Harkless is not a worthless player. The guy can make a wide open three, he can go off the dribble, sometimes, not all the time, and he can occasionally do something in transition and, you know, the defense again. But if you could package those two and some future first round pick, and maybe some of your young dudes, or rather than a couple of your young guys besides Zach Collins, of course, and you could turn that into a small forward who can put up a solid like 15 points a game, play off of Dame and CJ, and create some offense for themselves, and like help out Evan Turner and be a respectable defensive player, that would be massive. The guy I am describing is Tobias Harris. And, I mean, for that to occur, the Clippers would have to kind of taper off here, and I don't know if they're going to do that, but someone like him, if I can mention Evan Fournier again, but this time actually get the money right. I mean, Harkless makes about $11 million right now, and a couple of these young dudes are making about $1 to $3 million. You'd have to get a little creative, but I think if you tried hard enough, found a third team, whatever, you could probably make the money just work to get up to Fournier's $17 million. I think someone like him would help this team out a lot. I'm sure there are other guys who I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head. Yeah. The team's good. They're definitely good. They are proving me wrong. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't like burying them throughout the offseason, and I think if I would have ended up doing a predictions video, I probably would have had them still making it, but I certainly didn't think they were going to be this good. So I'm definitely still not like all the way correct on this team. And I'm probably a little more towards the wrong side than whatever else I was thinking. So, yeah, they're looking good. I hope they can get one more guy to really help them out. Turning Evan Turner into an actual player again is good. And yeah, we'll just keep on keeping on with these guys. Shout out to Nick Stauskas. And that's it.